Style takes too long. I can't fit anything. I have nothing in this closet. Oh, I'll just stay home. I need to purge my closet. Oh, but not that dress. Yo, Taylor here. If you ever thought to say one of these phrases, then this show is for you. Join me at the Style Table, where we'll have candid and fun conversations about real women's style issues and wardrobe dilemmas. We will discuss solutions and ideas that will give you a big sigh of relief. You'll learn ways to save money, make money, and enrich the lives of others with the clothes in your closet. We're going to take the stress out of your style. Hey everybody, it's Yo Taylor back here at the Style Table. I'm here with the fabulous Connie Steele, who is a future of work and life expert and an executive consultant. She's a podcaster, she's an author, she's a mom. She does everything, and she is fantastic. We're going to talk about the future of business and style. Connie, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So let's get started with the future of work. We're getting ready to enter 2023. So what's a future of work and life expert do?
Well, I think what's really important is to give people context of what's truly happening, and really from a human-centered perspective, because when people were talking about the future of work, particularly prior to the pandemic, a lot of the narrative was centered around technology, AI, automation, machine learning, how are robots going to change the way that we work and live? Or the other conversation, which is very important, was DE&I, so diversity, equity, inclusion. But really what was missing from my point of view is that we as individuals have been changing. Every individual wants something different, has different goals, has different aspirations, has different approaches to how we want to approach what we do professionally, but how we can live the way that we want to live personally. I think what you're seeing is a really interesting integration of work and life. And in fact, we had done an original research study to truly understand what workers want. And over 62% had indicated that they see their work and life as being fully integrated. So in the past, a lot of us kind of treated them as siloed, as separate. And, you had sort of a work persona and a home persona and certain things that you had to dress and do at work. But the reality is that those two are completely blended. And in this sort of shift that we have, it's moved from something that's very siloed and rigid and conformist, almost like kind of sequential in nature, to one that is fluid. It's collaborative. It's multimodal. It's multidimensional. It's really one where it's about individual agency, because people now want to be their whole self. And I think you have it kind of showing up in fashion, ultimately, because you see how people are mixing and matching so many different styles and changing them on a pretty frequent basis just to reflect who you are, because you're not necessarily just one thing. Right? You might have a mood where you want to be, chic and modern and elegant. But you know what? During the day, me as a mom, I want to be comfortable. So I love athleisure. But you can make athleisure kind of chic, right?
Absolutely. Athleisure is everything. And when I'm working with clients, I incorporate that when I create your lookbooks. I'm adding in athleisure. I'm adding in those clothes that you need for every day. And like you said, it's chic. I recommend them traveling in those. They look so good, and you don't set off the security.
Very true.
You can get through security quickly. It's all about being efficient and stylish.
Absolutely. And I'd say another piece is that, with athleisure, but even I think the clothes that people are looking at in general, comfort is really important. And I think that we used to separate certain attributes when it comes to our life, which bleeds into fashion, which bleeds into a lot of things that we do, that they couldn't coexist. And the reality when, we're kind of living in the world that we're in now, it's truly the hybridization of everything. So if your listeners were to take a step back and your viewers were to take a step back and think about exercise, think about all the different forms of workouts that exist now. It is not just a cardio workout. You can mix cardio with dance, with weights, there's plyo yoga, right? So it's plyometrics and yoga. But you have HIIT workouts where you're mixing up so many different things, like Tabata is another kind of style. But what you're seeing is different combinations of things that we have every day that create these interesting permutations of experiences of things that creates a new, unique look or path or what have you. I think that's what we have to recognize is that there really aren't these pure plays anymore. What you're seeing is just a really interesting combination. And frankly, you see it reflected in our lives. So, for me, I'm not just one thing. And I don't want to accept to say that I'm just one thing because I have multiple roles in my life, no different than you too. So everyone should feel comfortable to express who they are in whatever mood they may be in, because then you can really be yourself, right? There is so much talk to about how can you be your authentic self? Well, some of that is in expressing your own fashion and not feeling judged for it. And I think we're moving towards an environment where people are much more accepting in a lot of ways.
People are, and they're also looking at how clothes affect them as far as the environment. People are a lot more environmentally conscious. There's the upcycling of clothes where, it's different from recycling. Recycling, they're taking materials and shredding them and creating a new material. With the upcycling, it's even more effective because it's literally taking old clothes and refashioning them into new looks. There's designers like Eileen Fisher. Literally, I think you can bring your old Eileen Fisher garments and she's recreating looks from those garments, which are fabulous because the next generation cares about the environment. The apparel industry is the number 2 polluter next to oil.
Yes.
So people now are thinking about the environment. They're concerned. And so the trends are moving towards recycled, upcycled, reloved industry is a $53 billion industry. So I'm personally having a sip, swap, and sell event, which are always fun, where you can bring your clothes, trade them, and of course, we eat and drink and have fun. But it's a fun way to save the environment by exchanging clothes. You can sell to each other. I have clients who've made $1,000 just in an event like this. You can do one at your home with your girlfriends or your guy friends or whoever. Co-ed party. Young people are doing them. And it's a way to protect the environment. So how we look at apparel is much different than, and also we were talking about it earlier, younger people they care a little bit less about material things and they care more about experiences.
Yes, you brought up such a great point, particularly about the younger generation. I want to tie that into how we need to think about, the future of work and life very much at a human and individual level. That if you were to take a step back and really look at the demography and the composition of the workforce and people at large, you have 5 generations, right? So you have 5 generations right now in the workforce who inevitably have different styles, have different needs, have different attitudes, different motivations, different behaviors. However, what's really important to understand is that the largest generation in the workforce are the millennials. So the oldest is 41, right? And they fundamentally believe in really doing good and having social impact. It's about being better, doing better, and having an impact in the world. And Gen Z subsequently, obviously following them, have even a stronger point of view on social impact, particularly in the environment. So if you just look at demographics alone, and if you look at Gen Zs and millennials combined, they are larger than the older ones. I think globally, they are also larger in general. So again, if the oldest millennial is 41, in 10 years, they're going to be 51. They're going to be running most major organizations. And fundamentally, because they approach work and life very differently, they naturally think it's integrated, right? They use technology to educate themselves, and they're testing and learning and iterating all the time to figure out what fits them best. That's going to have an impact on everything that we do, how we work, when we work, where we work, but that's also reflected in what we wear, right? And what we want in terms of how we express ourselves in our fashion. So it's all, to me, fundamentally impacted and connected. And I even see my kids who are 12 and 15. They've talked about, hey, can we go to the thrift store? They don't see anything wrong with going to the thrift store. You see young parents going to ThredUp, I believe. So baby sort of marketplaces, right? People shopping consignment. There's no stigma where there used to be. I know when I was working, there was a stigma shopping at consignment, right? So there's such a different shift, and I think almost a greater inclusivity of different ways to acquire clothing, that it's really about not if it's the name brand necessarily. It's about, is it practical? Is it functional? Does it just fit me wherever it comes from? And I think, to me, that's really a great thing, that you're not boxed into anything anymore.
Well, I also, I've just been, just in my own personal family, we have grandchildren. We have 5 grandchildren, and 3 of them are girls. And they are literally 4, 3, and 2. And, the families, both our kids, we have 3 kids. But the 2 that have all the kids, they are literally passing the clothes down to each other faithfully. They're not like, oh, let me go buy the biggest. They get clothes and they share the clothes amongst the girls. And now we have 2 boys. And so they'll do the same thing. And I remember coming up, hand-me-downs. It was like no one wanted to wear hand-me-downs. And now it's like, who cares? She wore it for a minute. Let's just pass it down. And it's just it's a cool thing to see, but it's like, why was it a stigma in the first place? But I guess, it's the generational shift and a mindset of what's really at stake. And what's really in stake right now for all of us is the environment.
Exactly. Well, I think this gets to really a higher order sort of trend that we're seeing is a redefinition of what success is, and redefinition of what people really want out of their lives, where, in the past it was acquiring things, right? It was moving up the ladder, acquiring certain things to reflect a certain level of status. So the money, title, power notion all kind of went together. If you think about the 80s, right? It was all about materialism. It was all about showing your wealth, and it was about having more, acquiring more. But in a world where we're moving towards scarcity, not abundance, it makes you think very differently. And the younger generation really recognize it. And the thing is, their definition of what success isn't money, title, power. It isn't the acquisition of things. What they want is meaning. They want fulfillment. They want to pursue their passions. It's about happiness. So when you reframe what it is that is important to you, and they clearly recognize it, but because if you think about all the events that have happened in their lives, where there definitely weren't as many for me. I mean, each generation goes through some major life events, but they've had significant ones. It's forced them to really think about what is important. So, the pragmatism, particularly in Gen Z, that's what you're seeing as a trend, is that there's a greater trend towards pragmatism with that generation. And they recognize, it shouldn't be about materialism. It's how can we save things? How can more items that we have be sustainable. So, again, we have to be mindful of that. We have to support this generation is going to be taking over for us. And what do they want? We're trying to be responsible. So again, I see that in everything, everything that we consume, right? Everything that we consume, the way we live, the way we operate, the way our relationships are. So I think that's just important for people to be mindful of. And it all bleeds into fashion too.
Yeah. And like we were talking about fashion and work, it's work-life balance. Now we're not going to work every day. People are demanding, not just asking, demanding. Like, I have young people, young family members, well, the Gen Z and millennials, who are saying when they're looking for jobs, they're like, it has to be work for home. If it's not work for home, I don't want it. Or yes, it has to be a hybrid. So that affects your wardrobe, your style, your life. That's all a part of the future of work. And these companies, if they want to compete, they're going to have to offer some kind of hybrid because the young people are demanding that.
100% agree. In my situation, I can relate to all this so much because I decided to pivot out of a corporate job 10 years ago and to have to be forced to go to an office when my actual entire team was remote. So I had to figure out remote over a decade ago. I didn't have any of the tools and technology. So the whole thing of needing to go into an office, getting all dressed up. And I think in general is if for those who are female executives, you just feel you have to have that right wardrobe, right? Because that is a very important part of it as well to ensure that you have a presence and stand out and have, again, I think some of that's also to help with your confidence as well. There's just the whole package that you have to think about. But when you have the flexibility, which is what really so many of us need, whether you have kids or not, to know that, your wardrobe where you can be comfortable. And sometimes that actually can help with the way your mindset is for that day to just really do what you need to do. It all translates. So yes, there is that shift of the way people want to work, which is to be in a place where they could be their best selves, and that environment, whether that is remote, whether fully remote, whether that is hybrid, whether that is honestly close to where the office is, whether they're a digital nomad for that matter. But the intent is that they've identified the work environment that really fits them. And inevitably, how they dress for that will all come into play.
Yeah, because along with that comes the whole, the mental health piece.
Yes.
You need to take that mental health day, or you need to just even, me, I work from home, I run my own business, but I have to take the calls. Sometimes I have to go out and walk, and I'll walk, and even I'm like, I've been walking for 2 hours, but I've been on a call for 2 hours, but
multitasking.
You need to get out in front of the desk. And you have that flexibility when you work from home. So I would imagine, and of course I'm in my athleisure, I'm in my athletic gear, but I'm at least, if it's a Zoom call, sometimes you just want to sit outside in my garden and when I'm talking. But again, I have to still dress from here up. But I'm still professional enough, but I'm also outdoors for my mental health. And it's a break. You need a break. We need breaks.
100%. And, that's another sort of aspect that you're also seeing when it comes to, in this future of work and life, and that there's a greater recognition of the role that, workplace environments have on one's mental health. And in fact, there was a report that just came out. It was from the Surgeon General, and it was a framework for mental health and well-being. So it's the first time they've actually put together a framework that really conveys the connection. I think it's sort of things that we all know, but it's acknowledgement that there's a connection between that work environment that you're in and the health of that work environment, to ultimately a worker's performance. And so, when you tie that together, it's just important to recognize is that where you're at, who you work with, is necessary to really understand such that you can really perform at your best. And yes, if you can't get up and get out and do the things that are necessary to take care of you, you're going to struggle, right? Because I think so many of us have been in that situation, no matter what, is that, we're focused on performing for our job that we don't always take the time to truly take care of ourselves. And again, this is another thing that there is that recognition that our goals are different. Pursuing work success at the expense of your life, it's not where things are going. People are recognizing, I prioritize my life. How does work really integrate into that? How does it fall into that? And so I'm going to shape the life that I want. Work needs to fit into my life that I want, not this is the job that I want, or this is potentially the exact profession, and I have to make life fit into that profession because it was that perception before that if I'm successful in my profession, in my work, I'll be successful in my life. I think we all know that that's not necessarily true in a lot of ways, that we have to focus on us. And this really comes down to you really knowing who you are, what makes you unique, what value do you bring, and how do you express that such that people can see what your talents are, what your strengths are, in all aspects of your life.
And with that being said, we need to know, okay, as I'm looking at the building the business of you behind you. So we need to know how we need you to tell us a little bit of why you wrote this book, and then tell us how we can get the book and how we can reach you, because you're also a podcaster. So where can we hear your podcast?
Well, let me start with how I even got inspired to write the book. Well, it actually started with creating my own podcast, funny enough. And my focus on the podcast was originally to create thought leadership content to better understand how people could get unstuck in their sort of professional role and for the companies they work for, because I knew that, being a consultant for organizations and helping them with their marketing and business strategies is where I started, that it wasn't always so much the subject matter expertise, but there was sort of a broader set of factors that impacted people in their ability to push past the inertia. So I wanted to be able to tell the how from all of these different thought leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, and get that broader perspective. It was because a lot of times we know what gets us stuck. The problem is that we don't know how to operationalize it. So what was interesting is as I was starting to interview people, there were themes that were coming together, and they were related to how people were learning, particularly the millennial generation and what they wanted. And it was fascinating that this is at the same time where people were talking about the nonlinearity that they were seeing with millennials. And I think there was some frustration with different generations. And I want to dive further into it because the feedback that I was hearing and what I was learning was triggering something. So it became an obsession because I've always wanted to understand the why behind, companies and careers that thrive. And because of these ongoing interviews I had with amazing people, really of all ages, but particularly focusing on those millennials and doing my own research, secondary and primary, I came up with a hypothesis. It's really this thesis on what was going on in the future of work. And it was that narrative that I mentioned before, is that everybody was talking about the future of work is about tech, or the future of work is just about D&I. I'm like, no. We are different as people. We are in a fundamental shift in what people want out of work and out of life. And it's very much about being able to bring their whole selves. And I just wasn't seeing that articulation and really an explanation of why people were defaulting to nonlinearity. And I want to be able to create some clarity for people because candidly, I chose a different path. When I left corporate, that was the expectation. climb up the ladder, right? You achieve. But I wasn't happy. It wasn't it. And I realized so many other people were going through the same thing. So I wanted to be able to provide a very logical explanation as to what was going on, why it was going on, but what they were looking for. And ultimately, the careers that they were looking to create is what I call a career mashup. And it is that combination of roles, skills, experience, interests, hobbies, passions, because all of us are not one-dimensional. How do we combine that? And it's something that uniquely reflects our talents. And the way those people that I interviewed who were very successful at it, they were just doing strategic planning for themselves. So if you think of yourselves as a business, because you do now in today's world of work, if you don't think of yourself as a product or service on the web, you're going to be at a disadvantage because people can learn whatever they want about you first and make an opinion if they want to engage or not. Right. So just like a business, who has to do the necessary research and analysis to identify kind of those white space opportunities. They put together that plan in place to say, this is how we're going to execute against it, but get past their fear because there's change management involved. You need a necessary network to help you get there and build skills along the way. That really was the pathway that I saw others doing it, but we never think of doing it for ourselves. We naturally think, oh, well, I just need to find another job. I'm like, you're not answering the fundamental issue. You're not really addressing the question. So the book is about really providing insight into what the future of work is at a human-centered level, what that means for careers, which is a career mashup, and how people can go about doing it, because I wanted to really help provide that roadmap so folks can get unstuck. And, the book you can find on Amazon. You can get it Barnes & Noble online, but it is really the intent to truly help people find their alignment and fit, find that meaningful fit for you. And the podcast that I have is called Strategic Momentum, and you can find it wherever you get your podcasts.
There you have it. And on that note, you guys know where to find me, Yo Taylor at the Style Table on Facebook, Instagram, Yo Taylor on LinkedIn. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can hear and see these videos of these fabulous women who are doing great things. And you can hear this interview of Connie and reach out to her too. She's going to put her information in the comments when we release this video. It's going to be great. I'm so excited. This was a great interview, and I'm really energized by it. And I know you will get a lot out of it. Please look for her book and her podcast. And again, subscribe to At the Style Table on YouTube, and we will see you next time on At the Style Table. Bye.